Alright boys, Deus 2, HF2 Coil beta version, public release 3.03. See the little fall up there? You see that old mercury dime. Now, you know, you can be a beginner detectorist and buy a Deus detector. And you can even buy that coil right there eventually too. We're going to run this machine a few different ways. We are going to stay in well, I was even in the 89 band. I guess we could leave it there. That may change the results here. We'll just leave it in that 89 band. Alright? So, I've got this machine. I'm out here in the wild. I'm sweeping it. I don't have any notch. I'm in speed 1. Okay? Speed 1. So I sweep that. You hear that? I've got 28 in the meter. 34. Well, we know that dime's down there, don't we? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go in here and we'll put us in a little notch. Now I'm going to notch the iron range. You don't have to. Let's notch this machine over some. Let's see. There's 83. All right, what happens now? You hear that? Now I got a 92 in the meter. 94. 98. You hear that? Alright. Just let the notch down on it a little bit. 70 now. 0 through 70 notch. What happens? Now I got an 84, 87. There's a 75, 73. 84. 87. Now I've got notch in this machine. Okay, now the ID system on coins could change on this in the future. I'm unsure about it, okay? But watch what happens here. So I got an 86, 93. So I've got that signal there, and I've got that old notch in this machine. I'm going to mash this ground balance button. You hear that? Now I don't have large ID selected. Let me turn the camera off. Alright, camera back on. Now I've got large ID selected. Okay, so I told you what the notch is in the machine. Now remember, you can have, your ID could be averaged down with a lower conductive target over a high conductor. Okay? So you're out in the wild. You see that right there. Oh, look at that. 82, 85. Well, that dime reads a whole lot higher than that, right? So if you wanted to, since you've got this notch in this machine, you can hit that ground balance button. Where you was getting that signal, you sweep through there. Look what's happening. You see that? What does that tell you, the user? Uh-oh, masking, highly suspect. Meaning, that idea, that target right there could read higher than what's being indicated. In this case, it's showing an 81, 84. So you might trap some targets that a person may run a higher disc or higher notch and they wouldn't hear. Okay, somebody that's trying to run disc or notch will call it up to the wall. So it could be an Indian head penny in there, see, that's had its ID drugged down and you capture it. Now this would even apply to the other calls with this machine. Alright. You may go into a site and you run a 79. Now this ID on this ID is a little different than the other calls, okay? The high range, higher conducted coins. So you may walk in there, for example, with a 9-inch Deus 2 coil, and you may run a notch of 79, 78. And you'll get alert on that signal. And you might mash the ground balance button and say, when you're running that notch, you're like, wait a minute, I've got low conductive masking here as a possibility. Well, you can do that with this coil too, okay? It's a little strategy, because you always got people out there that are cute, They think their detector, they can run that notch, what we call, to the wall to avoid digging that trash. Well, there's a risk doing that. Now, remember, it's one push of a button. And this situation has to be there before you would see this, but you don't know if it's there or not. See that ID? So I've trapped that scenario in the wild. I'd hit this ground balance button. And I see that in there. And oh, that's that old mighty foil kind of shit, right? So if we take the foil away, okay, now even with the ground balance button in, we don't hear that low tone no more, do we? Look at that ID, boys. Now the horseshoe button, I call it a horseshoe button. Now the ground balance button is disengaged. You see what we've got now on that mercury dime. That's going to conclude the video. I hope you enjoyed.